The Rise and Shine podcast series is made possible by the generous support of Bonnie Vozar of Chicago, Illinois.
The shofar at Rosh Hashanah seems to be the wake-up call, the spiritual alarm clock to remind us to get up. Stop pressing the snooze alarm on your own life. You can tap into the flow of spiritual energy that helps us to recreate reality.
This is Rise and Shine, a podcast that offers timeless wisdom and uplifting meditations to fill your heart, feed your soul, and start your day on a positive note. Here is Adrienne Gold Davis.
I recently read something that totally blew my mind. It was in an essay by, you guys know my favorite rabbi, Rabbi Zvi Freeman. He's that brilliant writer and poet, and his words just resonate so deeply with me. Anyway, in his writings about Rosh Hashanah, which is coming up, and its powerful symbol, which is the shofar, this is what he says. Curious, isn't it, that a shofar with its narrow mouthpiece and wider opening resembles a birth canal. In fact, the Bible mentions a great woman with a name of the same etymology, Shiphrah. She was the midwife of the ancient Hebrews who left Egypt. Her name means to make beautiful, and that is what she did. She ensured that the babies would emerge healthy and viable, and she swaddled and massaged them to foster their strength and their beauty. Now, the shofar, he writes, is the midwife of the new year. Into its piercing cry, we squeeze all of our heartfelt prayers, our tears, our very souls. All that exists resonates with its call until it reaches the very beginning, the cosmic womb. And there it touches a switch. The divine presence shifts. It shifts modalities from transcendence to immanence, from strict judgment to compassion. In the language of the Zohar, which is, the basis of Kabbalah, the shofar below awakens the shofar above, and the Holy One, blessed be He, rises from His throne of judgment and sits in His throne of compassion. New life enters our world and takes its first breath. It's our own life as well, and it's in our hands. Whoa. The metaphors around birth are extraordinary, so let's tease this out a bit, because Rosh Hashanah is fast approaching, and it's up to each and every one of us to maximize its potential for self-recreation. So we learn that Rosh Hashanah, the words, quite literally mean head of the year. In our liturgy, in our prayers, we read words that say Rosh Hashanah is the birthday of humankind. Here's the quote. This day is the beginning of your works, a remembrance of the first day. Now, the word Shana, from Shana Tova, comes from a Hebrew root that has more than just one meaning. So for people like me who love playing with the meaning behind Hebrew words and letters, you should know that the letters of Shana, Shin, Nun, and Hey, are the letters that make the word Shana, year. But I also read that it can create different words from the very same letters, like the word shinui, which means change, and the word shonet, which means difference. Okay, so change and difference, as in new year, new you, as in start over fresh, go back to the start of time and creation, wipe the slate clean. So does this mean if I say the right prayers and press the right buttons, then the cosmic vending machine is going to reset me to a baseline of perfection? Am I just going to magically become the person I know I should be by following the formula of prayer? And if I'm tapping into the energy of rebirth, am I in the midst of some kind of fringy rebirth therapy? Rabbi Freeman, in his same essay that I quoted before, said that Rosh Hashanah, one could say, is the New Year's birth canal. So I decided, too many metaphors around birth. I needed to dig into this concept through a more psychological lens. And so here's something I discovered through my deep dive into Healthline and various other websites about psychology. Here's the quote. Rebirthing is an alternative therapy method or technique used to treat something called reactive attachment disorder. Now, this therapy uses a specific kind of breathing or breath work that's meant to help you release emotions. Now, supporters of rebirthing claim that by participating in a rebirth as a child or an adult, you can resolve negative experiences from birth and infancy that might be preventing you from forming healthy relationships. Some of these people even claim to have memories of their own birth during their rebirthing. In other words, it writes, supporters claim that the technique gives you a do-over of your entrance into the world without the trauma or instability you may have originally experienced. So the goal is to process blocked emotions and energy, and this leaves you free to form trusting, healthy attachments. Now, this is a fairly fringy New Age spiritual technique by a New Age spiritual guru named Leonard Orr. He was the one who developed this rebirthing technique in the 60s. And at the time, it only focused on breath work, but since then, its definition expanded and it includes other types of therapy that actually simulate birth. So rebirthing therapy is very controversial these days because there's very little evidence that it works. And in some cases, it's proven to be dangerous. In fact, it's involved restraining someone, and it's been banned in certain states. So let's be clear. That's not what we're talking about here, because clearly Rosh Hashanah's potential is an entirely spiritual rebirth, but the birth theme remains all the same. So another writer I adore, she's a writer and a therapist, Estelle Frankel, wrote in her book called Sacred Therapy this. She says, in the beginning of the book of Exodus, we have a family of 70 people who are going to Egypt because of a famine, and they settle in Goshen. The land of Goshen, which is in Egypt, is at first this very fertile, nurturing environment where the Jewish people can grow into a nation. But over time, it changes. And what was once a nurturing womb, there's that word again, for growth, becomes this oppressive society where they're enslaved. It's clear that they have to get out of there, and eventually Moses leads them to freedom. So we can see that as a symbol of how we often develop life structures, relationships, or even careers where we thrive for a period of time and there's a lot of room for growth, just like the fetus in its mother's womb grows and is nourished, but then it eventually gets to be too tight a space. And you should know the Hebrew word for Egypt, in fact, is Mitzrayim. And Mitzrayim literally means a tight place, a place of constriction. Oh, and let's not forget about the etymology of one of my favorite words, rachamim, or compassion. Or in Yiddish, as my Buddha used to say it, rachmanis. The root of that word is rechem. And guess what that means? Womb. The womb as a metaphor for compassion and the ability to invest in the potential of someone or something. So let's go back to Rabbi Friedman's essay. He says that the shofar is the midwife of the new year. You see, the shofar at Rosh Hashanah seems to be the vehicle, the wake-up call, the spiritual alarm clock to remind us to get up, wake up, stop pressing the snooze alarm on your own life. Because during that 48 hours of Rosh Hashanah, you can tap into the flow of spiritual energy that helps us to recreate reality. Because, my friends, things unfold based on how they began. If you plant an acorn, you're not going to get a cherry tree, no matter how carefully you tend to it or nurture it. Things unfold in the way they are planted and with what they are planted. And now we're planting a new year. So this week, can you take an honest look at where you need to tap into the energy of Rosh Hashanah and its potential to reset and re-begin, its rebirth, if you will? And don't look at anyone else's life because you're only allowed to take your own inventory. Be honest and vulnerable about where you need to wake up and where you need to stand up. And my blessing, may the energy of the new year and the, pardon my pun, labor of your efforts birth a new beginning for you and for this fractured world. It's the head of the year, folks. It's the time of planting. And may all of your plantings bear fruit, even in your lifetime. Shana Tova.
Thanks for listening to Rise and Shine. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to Momentum Podcasts on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Join Adrienne again next time for more timeless wisdom and uplifting meditations that fill your heart, feed your soul, and start your day on a positive note.
This podcast was made possible by the generous support of Bonnie Vozar of Chicago, Illinois. Spread the wisdom. Inspire Jewish individuals around the globe by supporting Momentum's podcasts. To sponsor, contact podcast@momentumunlimited.org. You're listening to a Momentum podcast. For unlimited inspiration, wisdom, and empowerment, visit momentumunlimited.org.